Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. I'm not used to coming to Newark and having a low voice at the end of the day. Well, thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here. I only wish that Mayor Baraka had told me he was wearing his pink sneakers. I would have bought mine to compliment his. So all the ladies were watching as we walked in there. So, thank you very much for hosting us here and for your leadership. It's great to be back in Newark with you, with champions for public safety like Director Froze, Chief Miranda, all of the distinguished Newark Police Command that is here, which I think is a testament to the importance of what we are trying to achieve. Mr. Durden, as well as advocates for every town for gun safety, Chelsea Parsons, and to our distinguished members of the council who join us as well to express their support of what we're doing. You know, this event was envisioned and scheduled well before the most latest set of tragedies we faced. I know here in Newark, we just very recently faced a tragedy. And Mayor, your poignant words from last week are still resonating as we grieve the senseless killing of a man and an 8-year-old boy. An 8-year-old boy. Nothing can ever prepare you for having to respond to that situation, for having to be in that room as a mayor, as a parent of 3 daughters. So I want to thank you for your leadership in that moment of heartbreak. Our thoughts and prayers are also with the people of Allen, Texas, as they have just suffered a very significant tragedy. But I am tired of thoughts and prayers, although they are worthy and definitely something that we should offer. It seems to me that we need to be doing a lot more than that, and that's what I want to talk about. I appreciate everybody who is engaged here in one form or another for the tireless efforts to provide safety and security for those who call Newark home, call New Jersey home, to the frontline first responders who protect our communities day in and day out. I want to say on behalf of a grateful state, thank you for your dedicated and selfless service to our community. We need not wait until, God forbid, something happens to one of you to express our thanks and gratitude. I want to do that today. I know it kicks off National Police Week, and there's an annual bike ride to Washington, D.C. So it's my honor to be here today, and I wish you all good luck as you celebrate the incredible contributions you provide to our state and to our nation. Now we're here today because last summer Congress passed and President Biden signed a landmark public safety bill known as the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. The bill was the first federal gun safety law that passed in Congress in almost 30 years. 30 years. Think about that. 3 decades of inaction before some of my colleagues finally came to their senses. It was shameful. Shameful that it took so long, and shameful that so many tragedies had to happen in that span. 1 year ago this Sunday, 10 souls in Buffalo were gunned down in a targeted attack on an African-American community. They were just grocery shopping on a weekend. 10 days later, our hearts further shattered when 19 4th graders and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School were murdered in Uvalde, Texas. 2 instances of senseless gun violence. So many more instances that never even made the front page of the newspapers. Following these devastating shootings, Congress finally acted. We passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, creating federal penalties for straw purchasing and firearms trafficking. We enhanced background checks for purchasers under the age of 21. We barred individuals convicted of domestic violence from purchasing a gun. This landmark legislation also unlocked more than $250 million for community violence intervention programs, as well as funding for mental health, school safety, and more. Right here in Newark, this legislation is the reason why $2 million was recently awarded to the Newark Community Street Team, an organization led by Mr. Damon, Durden, and that is an integral part of ending, hopefully, the cycle of violence and trauma that we see in our streets. Using evidence-based, trauma-informed approaches, the Newark Community Street Team, I think, is a model for the country. Deploying outreach workers and interventionists to mediate disputes, to de-escalate conflicts before they end in violence and retaliation. It's the clearest example of federal funding going to the people who need it most and to organizations who will put it to the best of use. So I'm proud to be up here with Mr. Durden and support his net teamwork and his team's work as well, but I'm also pleased to announce that there is more funding for other violence intervention groups. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act unlocked grant funding to be dispersed over a 5-year period, and the next grant applications are due on May 25th, so only a couple of weeks. But if there's an organization that is as good and valid as yours as they are seeking funding, there is an opportunity to make that application, and I want to urge our communities across the state to avail themselves of that opportunity. So if you have an organization that's eligible, go to ojp.gov, and you can learn everything that you need to do, ojp.gov. This funding is eligible to groups all across the country, but it's certainly my hope that New Jersey nonprofits can take advantage and apply for the federal dollars available. Follow the example of the Newark Community Street Team. Thanks to their federal grant, they partner with local police departments to stop gun violence and make our neighborhoods safer. But ask anyone in this space and in this work, and they will tell you that there is still more to be done. Congress may have passed some meaningful reforms and appropriate federal money, but at this moment we need to enforce the law to keep Americans safe. It starts by clarifying that under the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the law I've just been talking about that provides this money, that created these opportunities, under that law, every gun sold, whether it's at a store, online, or at a gun show, needs a background check. That common sense measure is supported by 90% of Americans and 89% of gun owners. But too often, a lack of clarity allows dangerous individuals to purchase guns without a background check. It's why we need the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm Bureau to issue a rule that moves us closer to a universal background check. My God, if you want to drive a car in New Jersey and most of the country, you need to get a license. It seems to me you need to do the same to be able to acquire a gun. Everybody should have to go through a background check to make sure you're the type of person who can even be allowed to purchase a gun. It's why I read a letter today to the Attorney General and the Director of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, asking them to heed President Biden's executive order and issue guidance on what it means to be, quote, engaged in the business of dealing firearms. When we have that definition, as we believe it should, it will cover a large universe of people who will be subject to the background search. We need everyone. Whether you set up a booth at a gun show or post an ad online to be conducting background checks on gun sales. We need registered gun sellers, those with federal firearms licenses, to spot people who may be trying to avoid these new rules and regulations. And finally, we need to crack down on bad actors who exploit loopholes to knowingly facilitate illegal sales of our firearms. All of this was our intent in passing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and if it sounds like a comprehensive strategy to enforce the law, well, it's because it is a comprehensive strategy. But strategies, as the mayor can tell you, is only as good as its implementation. You have to plan your work, and then you've got to work the plan. We need to make sure that the law is fully pursued and ultimately enforced so that we can have a smaller and smaller universe of those who should never have a gun in the first place. Now, I say this as someone who has a long record. I've always aspired to achieve an A when I was in school. but I am proud of the lifetime F I have from the NRA because you don't need an assault rifle to go hunting. You don't need high-capacity magazines with 50 rounds or more. That's why I sponsor the law to end high-capacity magazines. High-capacity magazines are about high-capacity killing as far as I'm concerned. You should be required to have a universal background check so that we know who in fact is even entitled to have access to a gun. And so as someone who has voted for these things in the past, I'm just hoping that we can prick the conscience of our colleagues in the Congress to finally say enough, enough to the killing, enough to the loss of lives. For people who talk so often about saving lives, this is an opportunity to save real lives and get an agenda moving. So I'm looking forward to continuing to press those issues in the Senate. But what goes on here in Newark, with the mayor and the Newark Community Street Team, doesn't deploy outreach workers without a strategy or a plan. The Newark Police Department doesn't respond to a call without backup. If individuals are answering the call with the proper tools and training, then we should expect nothing different from our regulators in Washington. Simply put, the ATF needs a plan, it needs a strategy, it needs to enforce the tools at its disposal of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Anything less is an insult to the brave men and women who answer the call of duty here in Newark and to the citizens who are caught in the crossfire. After all, preventing gun violence and safeguarding public safety are intrinsically linked. The work that Mr. Froese, Mr. Durden do are so intrinsically linked. And today, during National Law Enforcement Appreciation Month, and just a few days before the start of Police Week, we are all intrinsically linked to the trailblazing work being done here in Newark, which is why I wanted to come before I head back to Washington to highlight what is happening in Newark, to call upon our communities to emulate it, particularly in this program, to think of other innovative ways, and in doing so, to save lives. Thank you very much for having me.